What's up, Netflix fans? If you're looking for a smaller, action-centric crime drama on Netflix, I think I have a movie for you. It's called Rebel Ridge. Let's talk about it.
I need to report a crime.
And this was cash?
Yes, ma'am.
An ex-Marine grapples his way through a web of small-town corruption when an attempt to post bail for his cousin escalates into a violent standoff with a local police chief. That police chief is played by Don Johnson, who is just perfect for this role. It's directed by Jeremy Saulnier, who did Hold the Dark on Netflix, which I enjoyed, but Green Room for me was a total shock. Did not expect that to be what it was. Now he brings us something a little different, but also something that feels familiar. These types of movies and projects we see all the time in a Jack Reacher, in a Rambo type situation, if you will. This doesn't fully commit to being an action movie on that level, but you have a guy coming into town who is an ex-Marine, clearly has a very specific set of skills, and essentially the guy's a badass. He's also played by Pierre. Folks, I'll be honest, I don't know a ton about Pierre, but I want to know more after seeing him in this movie, because he takes what could have been a stale, brooding character with little personality but also little incentive to be there, to someone with an emotionally complex reason as to why he is there in the first place. But you also know he could probably wipe the floor with me and everyone else in this room, man. He has that badass factor to him that you want to see in a hero like this, but also the performance is awesome. I mean, genuinely, one of the most compelling characters, especially in the first act, his motivation as to why he's doing what he's doing. But when a guy is on a mission like that, the worst thing you could do is try to throw him off that path by being a total moron. And that's what a lot of the cops in this town, because there's something else going on here that we dive a little deeper to at the end of this movie, and he just kind of gets in their way, but really, they're getting in his way. And again, this guy can essentially do whatever he wants, take on anyone that he wants. But I don't want to paint the picture of this being a pure action movie. I use the example of Rambo as just a character type, but really not on that level of action. It definitely reminds me a lot more of Reacher. But even then, we don't get a lot of the action until the end. There's one sequence in the beginning that's kind of at the climax of the best part of the movie, which is the first act. I guess I'll elaborate on that more here in a second. It was amazing, and after 30, 40 minutes of this film, I'm like, I'm all in. This is one of the best first acts of a thriller that I've seen in quite some time, but also one of the best first acts of a Netflix movie I have ever seen. I was all in on his story, his connection, the reason why he is there, but also all of these guys just doing these things to set him up and frame him, and you want to hate every single one of them. You do, but the performances also are really good. I can't help it. I'm slowly becoming more of a fan of Roy from The Office. Used to think he was a jerk. Now I think he is a really good actor. I've always thought that. But the more I see him pop up in these smaller roles, I think this is his second this year, where I'm like, yeah, he's actually really good. And a little more of a complex character there than I expected. A couple of the people involved in this big cover-up that we eventually uncover, and our main character in Terry continues to dig that hole, but also, I mean, you know he has the skill set to do it, so you're like, yeah, go ahead, because, yeah, it's hard to take this guy down. And the other reason I love the beginning, simple yet effective. You have a story that we have seen so many times, countless examples of, but I'm riveted. I'm on the edge of my seat. Part of that is the performance. The other part is the director, and I just think Saulnier knows how to take these types of smaller stakes. A guy goes into a small town trying to get something done and turns it into conflict that seems a lot more impactful than it initially would. Even in watching the trailer, I'm like, yeah, the trailer, yeah, it looks interesting, but I know it's going to be good because of the director, and sure enough, it is. But Pierre being incredible, yeah, that definitely helps. You also have Anna Sophia Robb, who plays Summer. Summer becomes more of a prominent character as we move along. In the beginning, I thought she would be that character who, you don't know her exact intentions, but you know there's going to be a little help along the way. What I didn't know is that she would become such an integral part of this story, and really what she opens up for our lead in Terry. He chooses to go down that path, but also something happens that leads him down that path. That's when this movie became a little less interesting for me. And that's when it became we're trying to uncover this big secret of this small town. And yeah, we've seen that. But where this script nails it in the beginning is with its simplicity. I thought it started to become, I don't want to say overly convoluted, because it's very easy to keep up with, but it shifted focus away from something. I'm not going to say what that is because it's a spoiler, but I was so connected to that emotional side of the story. And when we shift that focus and there's something else at hand or at play, yeah, it was definitely entertaining in the end. And when it ramps back up, I started to lean towards the edge of my seat again. It got me back on board. But there's about a 30-minute span where we're slowing down and we're talking about all of these things happening, and I just wasn't as invested. I didn't find it as interesting as the beginning, and I loved the complex emotions from that simplicity in the beginning. I just didn't get that halfway through this movie, and I started to get a little bummed out. I also started to look at my non-existent watch for a moment. It's dead. It exists. Now, again, I want to make the point clear. I like this movie a lot. It doesn't heavily lean on the racial tension of it all, but you have a bunch of white cops and then the black guy comes into town, and those ideas aren't fully hit on, but I like the fact that there's a little subtlety in there, and there are some subtle moments that'll just make you sit back and kind of appreciate the intentions of this script and, again, of this director and just everyone involved in this film. It felt like they were trying really hard. I know that is a simple praise for a film like this, but I felt the passion, not only from the filmmaker, but from the actors, from the cinematographer. A lot of people involved made this a riveting movie, one that, again, I wish wouldn't have slowed down like it did in the middle and shifted that focus to something that was a little less interesting. And it's not that I don't like Summer as a character, and it's a good performance. I just found it less interesting than what we got at the beginning, and that leads us to the end that is still focused on that, but at least the action ramps back up. Not to the degree that I think some will want, but that in itself, I think, worked really well. And then the ending itself plays it safe just a little bit, but also was kind of cool. The way it all went down, the way it happened. And I had a smile on my face at the end because I knew I just watched an interesting action crime thriller on Netflix that is an original. You don't often say that. Before I drop my score, let me know your thoughts on Rebel Ridge down below. If you enjoy these Netflix reviews and you want to see me cover more streaming, drop that thumbs up. That would be amazing. And of course, check out the Movie Mode podcast, where we're probably talking about Rebel Ridge later on this week. And Rebel Ridge offers one of the most riveting first acts of the year, as it leans heavily on its intense dialogue and buildup of suspense, while it slows down and shifts focus around the halfway point, which is admittedly less interesting than the initial draw. The film manages to bring it all together by the Saulnier's direction, allows it to work, and Pierre quietly gives a powerhouse performance, and I mean genuinely one of the most surprising of the year. This guy is really good, man. I want to see him in a lot more, and I mean awards movies, action movies, whatever you want. This dude's legit, and a lot of people involved with this movie are legit. Let me know your thoughts on Rebel Ridge and what you're watching on Netflix this weekend. See you tomorrow.